It's day 28 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial, and it looks like the defense will not be calling any witnesses. What does that mean? Well, according to former prosecutor Sunny Hostin, she believes that the defense thinks that they've actually won this case. We have to unpack that and so much more in day 28 exclusively here on the Kempire channel of the Diddy trial.
Here we go now.
Welcome back to the Kempire channel, your number one source for pop culture news and music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. This recap, look, it's been a few days since we talked about the Sean Diddy Combs trial, but we've been talking about it since it began. If you missed it, you can hear this on the Kempire podcast, but you can also check out every single video on this trial in our Diddy trial playlist. So be sure to check that out if you haven't already. And if you're new here, be sure to let us know that you're new to the channel. We appreciate it because we've had a lot of new people join since covering this story. The Diddy trial, and I've said this before, and I give you a setup because some people were confused at my setup as if something happened previously in other videos. No, I give you a setup because this is my recap. Okay, I don't want to just regurgitate what you can see anywhere else. I'm giving you my perspective. This is not CNN. This is not, and I am not a journalist. I would never claim to be a journalist like some people will do, and they could be whatever they want to be, okay? I'm giving you my perspective, my reaction to the day's events, what I've discovered, along with giving you maybe some journalistic integrity along with that. But I'm giving you my thoughts because I am a commentator. I am not a journalist. I'm giving you my perspective on what I'm hearing. And then bringing on people that can give you an expert perspective, like Kirsten Brown, when she dropped by here on the channel last week for part 2 of our conversation. That was a 2-hour conversation. I loved hearing her thoughts and perspective, but I've also told you that every attorney is going to have a different feeling on how this case is going. But at the end of the day, this is going to make more sense by the jury and how they have been reacting to the evidence. Remember, there's evidence that the public, the media, has not seen that they are privy to. This week, today alone, they had to watch more freak-off footage. So we're going to get into our summary of the day. But before we get into our summary, I think it's important to hear another legal perspective. Sunny Hostin, who I've played for you guys before, she's been following this case as well and talking about this case on her own show, Outside of the View. I believe it's on Hulu. And she was on Behind the Table. I think that's what they call it, or Behind the View. I forgot what they call it. Behind the Table, yes. And she talks about her perspectives and whether or not she would have even taken this to trial. You might be surprised. And again, if you've been following our takes on this, we've been gathering information from different sources and things that I feel that are pertinent and worth us talking about and worth us being educated on. Okay, let's hear another prosecutor, former prosecutor, who she said last week, I think we played the audio, where Sunny says, yeah, and I never lost a case. Okay. She's never lost a case, okay? But so the Southern District of New York has a very high winning case. But Sunny says in this conversation that she doesn't think that she would have brought these charges or these particular charges against Sean Diddy Combs. Let's take a listen to what Sunny had to say about this case.
Going to rest this week, so
they're going to rest on Tuesday, and the jury will be charged on Wednesday, and summations begin Thursday. And I can't believe it because the defense announced that they would not be putting on any witnesses. No witnesses on the stand except for admitting some evidence. And you know what that tells me?
And sidebar, remember we were speculating whether or not KK would be called from the prosecution or the defense. Nope, that's not happening. Remember Mark Agnifilo, Diddy's attorney, lead attorney on this case, said that he's not sure whether or not Diddy will take the stand. And apparently, shout out to Law and Crime, I also watched the video from their journalist that's been covering this inside the courtroom as well. She says that it seemed as even at the top of the trial, it looked like Diddy could possibly take the stand. We talked about this with Kirsten. It's in the best interest most of the time for a defendant not to take the stand. But she's also has noticed that a lot of narcissistic personalities are usually the ones that will take the stand. That doesn't mean that Diddy doesn't want to take the stand. He could have been advised by his team. yeah, it's not in your best interest. And based off of how this case has gone, a lot of people will say, yeah, you don't need to. Based off the witnesses that the prosecution has brought, wasn't enough to prove all of the charges. All of the charges. Let me remind you before we get back into this, because I talked about this with Femtaro yesterday, and we did a special Sunday live doing because I tell you, I'm giving you a full experience, and you can hear this on our podcast where we have a psychic pull the cards and ask about some of these top stories, including the Diddy of it all. So I looked up his charges just to remind me, because we're covering so many different things we forget. So these are the charges, and I will change some of the language just because of YouTube and their guidelines. These are the charges. According to the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Combs is charged with operating a criminal enterprise that spanned from 2008 to the present, when he was arrested, 2024, and involved in multiple serious offenses. Specifically, the indictments included racketeering conspiracy under RICO, trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and they put it in parentheses, freak-offs, or hotel nights, Wild King nights. They were called a variety of different things. And the other charge is transportation for the purpose of prostitution. The prosecution alleges violent and coercive acts ranging from kidnapping and the abuse to the use of weapons and forced labor, often orchestrated through his business empire. And there are definitely a lot of elements that you can see that the prosecution throughout these 20-something days were trying to highlight those particular areas. And one of the things that stood out to me in my last conversation with Kirsten Brown, the LA prosecutor, she says, there are a lot of things that might be mentioned during this case that might go over our heads, meaning there are certain things that lawyers are listening to and paying attention to that will stick out to them, but won't stick out to us laymen's when following this case. So they said the possible sentencing. So these are the years that he could be facing if convicted of these charges. Up to 25 years for the racketeering conspiracy, 15 years to life for trafficking counts. See, and that's the thing. When we think about this, okay, did they prove racketeering? That is very debatable. 15 years to life for trafficking. I think there might be a lot closer to proving that than anything. Then up to 10 years for transportation/prostitution violations, which was what we talked about in regards to the transportation of workers. Taken together, the charges carry the potential of a life sentence in federal prison. All right, so let's get back to what Sonny had to say, because I actually was surprised.
They think they won.
Wow.
They think they won. And
So she's referencing the defense saying that they're not going to call any witnesses. And she's believing the fact that they're not calling any witnesses is that they feel like they have a very strong case here.
Sat in the courtroom for a couple weeks now. This was a really good defense. It was a really good defense. And perhaps the prosecution overcharged, charging racketeering. I've said it before. I was a federal prosecutor doing sex crimes and trafficking. I would not have prosecuted this as a RICO case. In terms of the sex trafficking, the prosecution's last witness is somebody from Homeland Security. And he's basically going through a lot of hotel invoices and trying to prove that Jane, she's testifying under a pseudonym, but one of Diddy's ex-girlfriends was sex trafficked because prostitutes were brought in and out of state, in and out of the country. But when Jane testified, she said she wanted to participate in many of them. She chose some of the escorts, paid, she willingly took drugs. And so I always say the defense only needs one witness to have reasonable doubt. The prosecution needs all 12 not to have any reasonable doubt. So I don't see how there isn't one person on that jury that is thinking sex trafficking. I don't see it. Racketeering. I don't see it. Perhaps transporting people, prostitutes for sex, perhaps.
And we talked about that at the beginning of the coverage of this trial. We were talking about how Law and Crime had said that too. It was like, when looking at the charges, they could definitely see the potential of the last charge of the transportation portion. And even with that, if he gets that, depending on his sentencing, he could literally walk
That's the Mann Act. That's the one that got Governor Spitzer. But he didn't spend the rest of his life in prison, did he?
Right. No.
So there you have it.
It's interesting because before you attended the trial, early on when we talked about this, you said something that stuck with me, and you said this before, that generally speaking, federal prosecutors don't put a case like this together unless they feel like they have it.
Absolutely.
And so are you surprised?
I'm surprised. Yeah. I was, I mean, look, it's James Comey.
We also have to keep in mind, too, what prosecutors would have done 10, 15, 20 years ago versus what prosecutors of today, very much like even whatever profession, doctors of today, police officers of today, are not made the same. And based on what we've been covering in regards to this case, we've all have felt sort of like, it's 50-50. In the very beginning, we were like, it's still 50-50. I don't feel like the prosecution is slam dunking this case. And to hear another prosecutor say the same thing, because even when we did our first interview with Kirsten Brown, Kirsten said the same thing. Still too early. It still feels very 50-50 in regards to this. And even in part 2, we're sort of like, it's going to be interesting. It's going to really depend on how the jury and those jury instructions will land.
Comey's daughter, Maureen, who I know, and she's leading the prosecution. She's doing a great job. But racketeering is really hard to prove. I worked with G. Robert Blakey, who wrote the statute. I was his research assistant. I know how hard that statute is. And I mean, the government has been pretty successful in prosecuting criminally some of these sort of ragtag criminal organizations and fitting it into a RICO enterprise. But the RICO statute is about mob activity. Yeah. I don't see how Bad Boy Enterprises worked as a mob to help.
And a lot of us were like, okay, look, they're building that case, but now we're at the end. Have the prosecution built that case? Sonny is saying here, she doesn't feel that way. This is a former prosecutor as well.
Help Diddy have hotel nights and freak-offs. It doesn't fit the statute. But the sex trafficking doesn't seem to fit either. And prosecutors, I think, win about 97% of their cases. So they go to trial.
Celebrity always confuses things a little bit, I'm sure.
Celebrity confuses things a bit. And this case is something unlike I have ever seen before. It really has been.
And that could also change her opinion on this because of how different this case is, that she hasn't seen anything like this before, which could be part of the reason why they're prosecuting this the way that they're prosecuting it. But again, this will be interesting to see how the jury takes this.
Kind of crazy. And I think some people will just think, well, this is the swinging lifestyle. The jury has heard so much, Brian, testimony about celebrities, how they party, that this sort of swinging lifestyle and having orgies and taking drugs is just kind of part of it. A lot of the women said, yeah, he introduced me to voyeurism and the swinging lifestyle. And I was into it at first until I realized that 90% of our relationship would be that. But they were kind of okay with it at first because they just thought that maybe that was the lifestyle.
However, and we've talked about this before, even if you are married to someone, the moment you say no, you mean no. And your partner needs to respect that. So if you get into a relationship with Diddy and you thought, okay, this is going to be something once in a while, and it becomes 99% of your relationship, now it's leaning into the world of abuse. But is it the charges that he's facing? Should he been charged with something else at the state level? Yes, without a doubt. I mean, these closing arguments from what we heard are going to be like 4 hours each in regards to both the defense and the prosecution.
This shroud of celebrity is all
going to
over
very
this
different
case.
Parties than,
I am too.
Yeah.
I'm not going to these parties.
No,
I don't
you're a
know.
celebrity. You've been to parties. You go to good parties.
I go to pretty good parties.
Yeah, I don't get it. All right, so taking your legal.
Sonny said, I'm not, because she knows Diddy. And again, I've said this before and I'm going to keep saying it. Just because people have gone to a Diddy party doesn't mean that they were involved in freak-offs. One of the things that we have to say by the end of this, none of these big old freak-off parties where celebrities were allegedly at were brought up, or at least based on what we've heard, submitted in evidence. Those freak-off videos that the jury has seen today were just Diddy, an S worker, and his then girlfriends. So And I'm not saying that those don't exist, because Jane did mention a party where there was a well-known rapper who people are speculating allegedly may have been Kanye and his wife Bianca. So she described that, oh yeah, there are these things that happen in entertainment that, and I don't know if she mentioned if they were being recorded or whatnot, but again, is that against the law? Well, if a person doesn't want any involvement and they say no, yes. But is it the racketeering of it all? Is it the S trafficking? We shall see. But let's get into our summary for today, day 28 of the Sean Diddy Combs trial. Just a reminder, NBC News reports, it says New York federal prosecutors are expected to rest their case against Combs today. They will rest tomorrow. Because this is early in the day when they report, Combs' defense team has signaled it will need around 2 days to present its case. If that rough timeline holds, closing arguments could take place on Thursday. As you also know, Brendan Paul, Combs' former personal assistant, testified last week. During his employment, he was instructed to buy thousands of dollars worth of various drugs for Combs' use. Paul told jurors he once went without sleep for 3 days and was once asked to buy thousands of dollars worth of drugs. He said that Combs didn't take no for an answer and compared his staff assistants to the U.S. military SEAL Team 6. And we talked about that. We learned a lot about that. On Friday, federal prosecutors walked jurors through text messages from Combs' former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, to the music mogul. In one text, May 2nd, 2017, Ventura said that she didn't deserve to be beaten by him. That's not love, that's possession, Ventura wrote, apparently referring to the 2016 hotel assault recorded on video. The defense also entered a March 18th, 2017 text message from Ventura into evidence, where she said, I love our FOs, where we both want it. When we both want it. She wrote in reference to freak-offs. The defense has tried to show some element of dual consent in Combs and his girlfriend's sexual encounters. All right, so day 28 goes into session. So according to the government, they expect to rest their case tomorrow. Assistant U.S. Attorney Maureen Comey told the court that Joseph Cercilio, a special agent for Homeland Security investigations, is expected to testify all day. That means the government won't rest its case in chief until tomorrow, setting closing arguments as early as Thursday. And we've talked countlessly as to why didn't KK testify. One of the things that Kirsten Brown said to us, that some of her text messages alone could be enough as her testimony. So the special agent with Homeland Security testified, is back on the stand, and was asked about text messages Combs sent. In one text, Combs' chief of staff, Christina Curran, planned his stay in Las Vegas hotel, where it appears he was planning a hotel night. She texted saying she had a room in the Waldorf Astoria, Las Vegas, put Plan B in his nightstand, and said a jeweler selling Van Cleef can meet him in New York. Jurors wore headsets and focused on screens to watch what appeared to be freak-off videos involving Combs' former girlfriend, Jane. We say it appeared because this was not played for the court, just for the jury. Cabral, an S worker, who was among the regular partners of these rendezvous, is expected to be in these sets of videos. Federal agents discovered 50 explicit video files in Combs' possession that were created from December 17th to the 21st of 2021, the witness said. The jury was shown 2 of these video files. Combs looked around the room as the video played in court, rather than at the monitor showing the explicit footage in front of him. At the same time, defense attorney, this has got to be such a weird case. I don't know if this has happened before in court where they play explicit video to the jury, but like nobody, the intention behind these videos, I'm sure, were not for them to be seen by anyone besides the people involved. And now there is a jury that is seeing this. Okay. Combs looked around the room as the video played in court rather than at the monitor showing the explicit footage in front of him. At the same time, defense attorney Nicole Westmoreland and Combs' mother Janice focused on the jury's reactions to the graphic videos. According to Law and Crimes reporter that they had in there, she was asked about their reaction to just in general and also Diddy's demeanor. They said Diddy's demeanor hasn't changed. It's been the same. He's alert. He's looking around. He's looking at the jury. Is he engaging with the jury? Not more than he has already been. So I don't think that much of that has changed, but the judge has not kicked him out of the court, even though he threatened it. He threatened it a couple of weeks ago. They continue in regards to S workers' travel records, a link to Combs' Amex. Jurors were shown flight and hotel records for Cabral, an S worker, mentioned frequently in this trial, who travels appear to be paid for by Combs. Prosecutors showed that Cabral stayed at the Trump International Hotel and Tower in New York in September of 2023 after arriving on an Atlanta to Newark flight, all on Combs' American Express card. While this could be one of the more tame, non-explicit pieces of evidence in this trial, it could be crucial for prosecutors seeking to paint Combs as the alleged head of a criminal enterprise. So as you can see, we've just heard Sonny talk about this. We've heard Kirsten talk about this. Even legal experts are like, I can see what they're proving here, but also I can't see how they're proving it here. As texts between Jane and Combs were discussed in court, Combs hung his head for several minutes. Combs, dressed in a white sweater and glasses today, appeared to be reading something in his lap. Combs' former girlfriend, identified in court as Jane, lashed out at the music mogul in September of 2023 in text messages, refusing to meet him in New York City. She texted him that it's clear you just want me there for a hotel binge. You've got plenty of other women or S workers for that. She added, I don't want to be used and locked in a room to fulfill your fantasies. So to me, again, that is her saying, no, I don't want to do this. Combs was and again, the other part of this element, they're saying that he would hold the paying her bills and her rent over her head in order to entice her to continue doing these freak-offs. Combs was such a frequent user of male S workers' agency that the music mogul argued that he deserved cut rates, according to text messages with the provider. So that was read in court. In a chat with the Cowboys for Angels representative named Bridget on September 26, 2023, Combs wrote, "Stop raising my rate. I'm a long timer." Okay. The agent said it wasn't up to the company, but the worker himself, Cody, who told Combs the best guys have high rates. Bridget added that she was contractually obligated to the rates on the website. Combs said it was okay. Not him being cheap. He had to be cheap because we were just saying this the other day. His assistants did not need to work around the clock. You could just hire more assistants. So he's definitely, and look, he's been accused of stealing from his artists for years, like greedy. The best guys have the highest rates. Bridget added that she was contractually obligated to the rates on the website. How do you have a website that, I guess you can have a website with illegal activity? Combs said that it was okay and asked Cody to come to the Trump International Hotel and Tower in New York for a 1 a.m. rendezvous. In another exchange of texts, Bridget messaged Combs saying there was a mistake with the cash payment and the company was owed $600. Combs replied, laughing out loud, he couldn't even perform. Oh my God, what is happening right now? Bridget responded that the agency pays for time and companionship. Also, is that how they market it on their website? They're not talking about the sexual aspect. I see. Bridget responded that the agency pays for time and companionship and that the cost is the same for clients like Combs. Whether you're skydiving or dancing, you pay for his time. Oh, Lord. Combs asked her to talk nice to me and again reiterated that he's a longtime customer. She apologized and said, not trying tones, I guess, to sound smart with you or to get smart with you. And he said, it's all good, all love. Combs and then girlfriend Jane took IV supplements as a part of at least one freak-off session, according to a group text chain. In a September 2023 chat that included the couple and members of Combs' team, An assistant named Ashley reminded everyone to make sure that the sodium chloride, vitamin B12, B complex, zinc, calcium, amino acids, toradol, magnesium, and Benadryl were ready for their IV use. Sidebar: if you're on the East Coast, there's a heat wave going on. Make sure you're staying hydrated. And when I say hydrated, sometimes water is not enough. Get you some. You know what? I just started trying liquid IV. I don't know if it's working, but I'm making sure I'm staying as hydrated as possible, especially right now. In one text exchange, Combs' chief of staff, Christina Curran, again, this is what Kirsten said, like there's so many text exchanges with Christina. Does she even really need to testify? They already verified the authenticity of these texts. In one text exchange, Combs' chief of staff, Christina Curran, asked Combs to call her and told him, next time you leave when you're randomly partying, you have to tell us. She said that he can't take Ubers with a guest because that's when bad-ish happens. So she really was like the Jazz Lane to, I'm just saying, to his Epstein, allegedly. She added, I didn't want to hit you with this. It's not cool. If something happens, it would not be good. She's trying to protect her neck. She doesn't want another Cassie situation to happen. In a November 2021 voicemail played for jurors, Combs is heard telling his chief of staff that he's out of baby oil. How are you out of baby oil? I know she's probably thinking to herself, like, how are you out of baby oil? In the urgent voicemail, Combs told top lieutenant, no, not top lieutenant, that's what NBC News said to her, referred to Christina Curran as. He said, I can't believe I'm out of the lubricant he frequently used during his freak-offs. Curran assured her boss that a fresh delivery would be left outside his door shortly. What in the... And my thing is, too, you ran out, but you're so like, I need this, so distraught over running out. Just finish off and be done. You'll get some for your next one. There's something there psychologically. We're not talking psychologically here, but there's definitely something. We need to bring a psychologist on. All right. In a voicemail to his chief of staff, Combs wanted someone to bring him his Apple TV system, whole milk lattes, coconut water, 7 bottles of baby oil. Y'all, okay, for those that aren't familiar, some people might not be familiar with baby oil. Hear me out. Baby oil already, you don't need a lot of baby oil for it to be like, oh, I put a little too much. You don't need a lot of baby oil. So the fact that he needs 7 bottles, no wonder there was so much damage. Wait, didn't they say, wasn't it Philippine that said that they filled, or someone said this there's so many witnesses, so many documentaries. They filled like a tub with baby oil. What we did find out during this trial, though, is that the baby oil, according to Cassie, were not laced with anything, because that was speculation as well. All that, you don't need a lot of baby oil to be like, oil is very like, you only need a little bit. That's why you could. I don't have a baby oil now, but growing up, that 1 bottle of baby oil would last you for years. I don't know about years. I'm being dramatic, but it would last you a good amount of time. All right. So they said that these are the things that he needed. He needed 5 bottles of Astroglide as well. Astroglide probably too is like the same. Isn't that sort of like the same texture? Maybe not. I don't know. But it's still like a jelly thing. And some vegetable soup. Oh gosh. From the high-end grocery store. Erewhon. I've never been to Erewhon, but I hear it's fabulous but expensive. Combs wanted the order filled so I don't have to call anybody about it later, he said in a voicemail. They said voicemail here, but I think these were voice notes. He used to love leaving voice notes. Around the same time of Cassie Ventura's 2023 lawsuit against Combs, the music mogul's then girlfriend Jane texted him that she is not a corn star to be ordered to have sex with strangers. In a series of text messages, Jane said that it'd been 3 years of having to F strangers, telling him that sex is sacred to her and she didn't want to be intimate on his command anymore. Again, all of this is her saying, this is not what I want. This is a no. When Combs responded that sex isn't necessary for their next meeting, Jane wrote back, you make it clear exactly what you want. Jane said that she was mentally and physically drained of it all, according to the text messages. She also told him that she's not going to have sex with strangers to fulfill your fantasies. All right. And just a reminder, guys, for those that are just joining us, don't forget to like the video. It's an easy and free way of supporting not just my channel, but other channels as well. And if you're listening to the audio version of this on the podcast, because you can do that as well, make sure you give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Also, don't forget, this week there is a flash sale over for our Philadelphia show at City Winery. $25 premium ticket. So if you've been waiting, or if you didn't know, some of you don't know, we're bringing our live experience show. It's a night of hot topics, tea being spilled. LA, we had a bunch of freak off stories that were told. And no, people that allegedly attended a freak off. That never came up in the court case. But two different people that don't know each other told these stories at the LA show. So you just never know what tea will be spilled in Philly. And especially there's a sale going on. And then we're coming to Atlanta on August 5th. Then we're in DC on August 22nd. Then we're back here in New York City on September 12th. Get your tickets today for the Kempire After Dark, the Villain Era live experience coming to a city near you. Again, Philly, flash sale this week. The sale ends on Sunday. Okay. All right. Let's get back into this. So federal agent returns to the stand. The HSI special agent, Cercilio, returned to the witness stand for cross-examination by defense lawyer Tenny Garagos, Mark Garagos' daughter. So the agents spent most of the morning as a conduit for prosecutors to show text messages sent by and to Combs, filling in details of the defendant's work and love life. In a November 2021 text, Combs' then-girlfriend, identified in court as Jane, told the music mogul that she couldn't wait to hook up with my favorite person. Combs then asked Jane for specifics of what she wanted to do with him, and she responded in a graphic sexual detail. The defense hopes to show that Combs' girlfriends were willing partners and not trafficking victims. Again, this is all going to depend on the guidelines given to the jury, because I can read between the lines on what's happening here. But again, just because my assumption doesn't mean I can come back with a guilty verdict if the guidelines say, well, you have to go by these guidelines and then determine guilty or not guilty. And I talked about this with Kirsten, that I did years ago, a focus group where they sort of set us up as a jury. And first of all, it was annoying. So God bless the jurors, because I remember that. And mind you, they've been dealing with this and listening to evidence for weeks. But that jury process is complex. Hence why they got rid of jury number 6. This was why the judge was like, you can't answer these questions and be clear. You're not going to be able to handle this jury deliberation process. So it made complete sense as to why to get rid of him. But I also understand where Diddy's defense was coming from when they wrote that 14 pages. They made very valid points. But when I did that focus group and we did the deliberations, like, you have to go by these particular guidelines that are given to you. I was like, and you had to pay attention, like, okay, so how do I, and again, they do these focus groups in preparation a lot of times for a trial. I don't know what trial this was for. It wasn't anything as dark as this. I can't even remember what it was. I think it was like something with a product or something like that. I don't remember. But anyway, I just give you that context that we might feel the way that we feel based off of the information that we've gotten so far. But once we see and maybe we can do this with Kirsten, once the guidelines for the jury is made public, we can go through them together and see, okay, well, this is what they've been given and this is what it means. Because again, we're laymen, for those of us that are not attorneys. They read that text message from Jane. More explicit videos are shown. God bless the jurors. Not only are they listening to horrendous behavior from Diddy in regards to the abuse and these explicit text messages and now video footage that they're having to watch. The defense showed jurors explicit video footage of Jane having sex in November of 2021. The video was only shown to jurors, the judge, and lawyers, as it was shielded from the public's eyes. It wasn't immediately clear what was in the footage, but the defense likely hopes to show Jane as a willing participant. In December of 2021, Jane reached out to sex worker Cabral and appeared to initiate a freak-off. according to a text message exchange. Before, however, Jane asked the S worker to take a PCR test, hearkening back to an era when America was still fighting to control the COVID pandemic. The jury was dismissed for the day, but there was more that we need to understand in regards to the administrative side of court. So according to NBC News, they said Combs' defense team said it plans to rest its case without calling any witnesses. That's big. But will submit some evidence, according to Mark Agnafilo. It said before jurors entered court this afternoon. It appears that instead of witnesses, the defense will stipulate several issues. An HSI agent will continue on the stand tomorrow before the prosecution rests its case. A charging conference on Wednesday and summations on Thursday will follow that. Let's get into the details of what that means, because I know I'm using words that a lot of us don't understand. Let me explain to you what that means in regards to the process. Okay, so I had to pause so I can get this information. Shout out to our friends over at ChatGPT. Okay, let's get into what that means. In a federal trial, charging conference and summations are two important steps that happen toward the end of a trial, right before the jury makes a decision. So in simple terms, this is a private meeting between the judge and lawyers from both sides, prosecution and defense. And we talked about this with Kirsten as well. Kirsten did a great job at breaking it down, but I wanted to remind us, for those that may have not seen, the two interviews that I did with Kirsten Brown, a Los Angeles prosecutor. But like I said, if you haven't, it's worth it. If you want an educated understanding, a legal understanding of what we've been reporting on for the last how many weeks. So this is a private meeting between the judge and lawyers from both sides, prosecution and defense. They go over the instructions that the judge will give to the jury. These are called jury instructions, or the charge. These instructions explain things like what the jury's job is, what the legal definitions are, what counts as reasonable doubt, for example, what law applies to the charges, what the jury can and can't consider when deciding the verdict. So these are important details. The lawyers may argue about what should be included or excluded, and the judge decides. So these are important details, because these details will probably either help Diddy get out or help the prosecution have him become sentenced. All right. So they said, think of it like this. Before sending the jury off to decide, the judge makes sure that the rules of the game are clearly explained. And the charging conference is where those rules are finalized. So we're getting closer, guys, to the end of this. And I know you all, like me, are looking forward to the end of this. Summations, aka closing arguments. So that's what summations are. This is when each side gives their final speech to the jury. And based on what we're hearing, each side in this particular case will need 4 hours. The prosecution goes first, then the defense, and sometimes, and we talked about this with Kirsten as well, and sometimes the prosecution gets a short rebuttal. They summarize the case and try to persuade the jury to see the evidence their way. For example, the prosecution might say, here's all the proof we showed you that the defendant is guilty. The defense might say, there are too many holes in the prosecution's story. You can't convict beyond a reasonable doubt. Think of it like this. It's each side's final pitch to the jury before the jury goes off to deliberate. And it will be interesting, and we could take bets in the live chat. How many days, if days, will it take for the jury to come back with their verdict? I think it might take some time. Just because these charges are not so clear cut, and I'm sure the instructions are going to make it a little bit more challenging for this jury. And especially because, like what Sonny just said, we haven't seen a case like this before in this particular court with these particular charges. So a summary they give us is that charging conference equals behind the scenes meeting between the judge and lawyers to decide what instructions the jury will get. Summations equal each lawyer's final argument to the jury to convince them how to decide. And keep in mind, I believe, based on my two-hour conversation with Kirsten, the prosecution is the only one that's allowed to do a rebuttal. So they will have the final word on this case. So That will be interesting. That will definitely be interesting tomorrow. So the defense will not be calling any witnesses, which it's pretty interesting because it is saying that they feel like they don't need to call any witnesses, not even character witnesses, because in their heads, you already believe that Diddy's a terrible person, but did he commit the crimes he's being accused of? Defense lawyer Garrigo said it's expected that each side, that the prosecution and the defense, will take about 4 hours to make so maybe it's a combination of 4 hours to make its closing arguments to jurors. Those final words could be spoken on Thursday, with jurors getting their first chance to deliberate on Friday. On Friday, guys. I can't tell you I'm happy about that, because I will book a trip if they come to deliberate the following week. That's the only reason. I'm glad that I didn't travel during this time, because I've been really great that I've been able to connect with Kirsten and talk about this case with her and educate ourselves on this case, connecting with you guys in the comment section. A lot of you are new to the channel as well. If you're new, be sure to let us know so we can we are a community here on the channel that respects each other's opinions, even if we don't agree, because you guys don't always agree with me, which is fine here, as long as you're respectful in sharing your opinion, because I think I'm respectful in sharing my opinion. But I'm glad that I decided not to travel during this time. I didn't even get to travel for my birthday. No. Whoa, Kempire. Whoa. I didn't get to travel for my birthday in May. I was here I can't believe it. But again, shout out to the other content creators and journalists and lawyers that have been following and helping us all piece this story together, because video and audio were not allowed in the courtroom. Shout out to all of you that were down there every day, that are down there during this heat wave. You guys are all greatly appreciated. Make sure you do something for yourself after this trial is over as well, so that you can ground yourself and get your energy back. Because I can only imagine listening to this stuff every day, actually in the court, listening to every day, can't be good for anyone's mental health. Especially because I'm sure people have either been through similar situations or know people that have been through similar situations, and it can be quite triggering. Thank you to all of you, though, for always supporting here on the channel. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to share the video. And don't forget you can hear an audio version of our live recaps and special episodes and our Diddy updates on the Kempire podcast. While you're there, don't forget to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And the Kempire After Dark live experience is coming to Philadelphia on July 10th. There is a flash sale for premium tickets right now. Go get your tickets today. That is only happening this week. Come for a night of hot topics, tea being spilled, and laughs. And Kiki will coming to Atlanta on August 5th, DC on August 22nd, then back here in New York City on September 12th. Ticket information will be available in the description. Meet and greets are available for all the shows. There's a live stream option available for the New York City show. So if you're abroad, or if you're another part of the city, or you've come to the other shows and you want to hear more tea being spilled, because what we say in these other cities won't be what we say come September. We probably won't be talking about Diddy come September, or maybe we will. Who knows? Guys, as always, thank you so much for being here, and thanks so much for watching and for listening.
Here we go.